how everything underneath your feet just opened up and swallowed you. You screamed and you cried, but no one could ever listen to you. And even if they did, they couldn't understand you. Even if they did, they couldn't feel you. Do you have any questions? Once you become proficient in having a windshield wiper on the inside that removes all things that stick to you, and then you go back to being empty. Okay? For a novice, this is extremely important. Why? The only way Socrates could pour anything inside you is for you to be empty. Now here's the thing. Socrates made Plato empty, and Socrates is the only person who can fill Plato. No one else can. Okay? Now, if this is a little too difficult to grasp, let me give it to you in this other way. Diana has a water bottle. The only way that she could have poured some fresh water in it is for her to have washed it, okay, and then poured some new fresh water in it. Not a single one of you in this class, when you go home tonight, will ever eat food on a plate that's already been used or is dirty. It's been in the sink for a while. You see me here? The culture, the personal, and the trauma. I have been in the dish sink for about 4,000 years. Why would anyone like Socrates try to help me out? What do I need to do for him to be able to create a space inside me? Okay? Now, let me make this relevant in a different way, since we're dealing with a lot of young people. Just in case you find yourself in a relationship of any kind and you have invested a good amount of physical, emotional, intellectual, even for those of you who like to feel somewhat profound about yourself, spiritual energies. If you have invested a good amount of yourself into another person, and all of a sudden your relationship goes bad, you do become empty. Okay? But because your emptiness was not created by a professional, someone like Socrates, emptiness gets filled with anger and resentment. And it's going to take you, depending on how much you've been invested, it's going to take you many, many weeks, months, or even years to become empty. So not to seek Socrates, so you can go back to dating. Okay? Socrates wants to completely detach us from life, everything. You can't go back to life ever again. Okay? Now, Once you find yourself in an empty space that nothing makes any sense or meaning, it's a little difficult to do, but if you have the tools, try to universalize your experience here. That's Karen. This is me. And this is Bridget. Forget Jane right now and forget Bridget. Let's talk about Karen and I. Forget Karen. Let's just talk about me. I have what most of you in this class want to have in the future. And none of the things I have satisfies me. Remember the story of the Buddha? Old age, sickness, and death. And in death, emptiness is achieved. Remember the first noble truth? That this self that you and I attach to so strongly doesn't really exist. You find a Socrates, he'll get rid of the whole thing. Go back to the idea of impermanence. Nothing lasts. Everything is going to be subjected to old age, sickness, and death. And what happens with impermanence? Dissatisfaction, disappointment. Emptiness is everywhere. Okay? And by emptiness, for us novice, I mean everything eventually becomes meaningless. Okay? And as a novice, you have no choice but to shout and scream and try to find some sort of entertainment. Now, when you are formless and when you are empty, there is a birth of sorts. You become a child. But don't mistake this for a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old who are raw, uncivilized, untamed, undisciplined. A child like Socrates, for those of you in this class who have read the Gospel of Judas, there is something really interesting about the book. That Judas, whoever the author of this book is, suggests that when there are Jewish rituals and ceremonies, Jesus walks around and he feels like a child. And he doesn't really care about Sabbath. He doesn't really care about some of the Jewish ceremonies or holidays or beliefs. He just doesn't care. And when his disciples perform them, he simply laughs at them. So remember, there is the laughter of the fool and there is the laughter of the wise. They have two different meanings and intentions. Now, children, they're profoundly innocent. They're like Enkidu. On the inside, they live in the forest. Forest is organic. It's always alive. They don't need books to read. They don't need places to go. With innocence comes purity. Purity of intentions, cleanliness of thought. When you become a child, a branch comes out of you. You become spontaneous. Let me tell you a story about a man who used to live in Iran many, many, many years ago, around the 12th century or so, maybe the 13th, maybe the 11th, I'm not really quite sure. His name is Rumi. So one morning he goes to the market to get some food, and he hears the blacksmiths just hammering away at the gold to thin it out. And for some strange reason, the sound of the hammer feels very melodic to him. So he begins to dance. And the chief blacksmiths, looks at all the other blacksmiths and says, don't stop hammering. Even if your gold turns into dust, even if you lose everything, continue hammering because our master is dancing. Spontaneous. Now, the thing you need to know about this is the following. You don't have to be Lao Tzu. You don't have to be Jesus Christ. You don't have to be Socrates. Every single one of us in this class, we have these days, and I don't know how these moods come about. You just wake up and you feel as if whatever you touch turns into gold. And it certainly does. Or you wake up and you say, I don't want to go to work. Remember the idea of Karl Marx and capitalism? People feel alive only through three things: eating, drinking, and having sex. Those are the only ways you can come to life in capitalism. There is no other way. Okay. But I would counter that all of us in this class have these moods that come upon us. Okay. Where you kind of just walk away from life. And you become creative. You're able to be self-sufficient. For those of you who may not know the history of Karl Marx, when you get rid of God and you believe that everything good down here has been created by the genius of human beings, then you say, well, maybe if we can get rid of Yahweh, we can be gods ourselves. But you have to have the right components, right qualities inside you. Those moments or those moods that happen to us impose themselves upon us. سمن بویان غبار غم چو بنشیند بنشانند. That you wake up in this sorrow and you have no idea why you are so sorrowful. You look at your parents, you haven't done anything bad to them. You haven't done anything bad to your husband or to your wife or your children. And yet there is this sorrow inside. And it's not sorrow because you have a bad life. You feel incomplete. As if you're a speck of dust. And you like it. You're profoundly empty at the same time full of what you just don't know yet. And these are dangerous moments for you and I who are novices, because you can call your boss and say, I quit. I shared with you, Ginning and I were walking a couple years ago. This was a time when she had her first teaching position at somewhere. And she was so excited, so inspired. And as we were walking, all of a sudden she says, I want to quit my day job and just go full force into teaching. Now, if you happen to be a novice, be very, very careful about these spontaneous moments, because they can ruin your life. Like anything else, this is wild and it needs to be tamed. Okay? I'll tell you a story about being spontaneous. I had a friend who worked at Pac Bell. Later it became AT&T, I think. He had been fasting, he had been reading continuously for like 2 years or so. Very, very intense. It's like a volcano on the inside. And he had a relatively high position at the company. He was sitting one morning in a meeting, and he said all of a sudden, as I'm giving my talk, I begin to feel as if there are these arrows made of gold piercing into my heart. And I wanted to get on the table and dance. But I couldn't. So he goes home, has a temperature of 104. But because of the experience, which was still with him, he goes to Home Depot, buys about 20 bags of concrete, pours it in his backyard, makes a nice walkway. It has never happened to him again in the past 40 years. Okay? So, beware of formlessness, because you will lose everything. Beware of becoming empty, because in it you will only find despair and anger. Beware of this creative force, because you have no idea what it's going to do to you. And it's always, always, always better to have someone who's proficient, like a Socrates or a Jesus or a Moses or a Muhammad, to create formlessness and emptiness and creativity inside you. Don't do it on your own. Now, there is also another branch that comes out of having become a child, and that is called being like water. We take a shower to get the dirt off. We wash our hands before food to get the dirt off. Sit in the presence of Socrates and he'll wash you with a different kind of water. Fall in love and you will realize that nothing in life matters except being around the person you love. Fall in love and you will realize that love will wash you. You will sit by your phone. You will check your email 500 times. You will be restless. You will have longing and yearning within you. Okay? Now, the sort of water that exists within Socrates or Lao Tzu or Muhammad or Jesus is in the following way. How do you thicken your skin so that the world and its forces will not impact you as much? someone needs to make your life meaningless. And your life is nothing but cultural, personal, and historical narratives. Is that you, man? Greg, hello. How are you doing?
Thank you.
Karen has been so unfocused because you haven't been here. Now that you are, I'm sorry, Karen. Tonight when you go home, fill a cup with ice. It's hard. It's cold. For the most part, it's unpleasant. Find a Socrates and tell them you just broke up with your boyfriend. They wouldn't care. Find Socrates and tell them your mom just passed. They wouldn't care. Find Socrates and tell them you just got an F, you didn't graduate. They wouldn't care. These are the most uncaring people you will ever meet. They don't care about our pathetic little lives. It's unimportant, it's uninteresting. Now, when you fill this cup with ice, it's like a mountain. But then watch it melt. Or watch the rain come down, either from the mountain or from the sky. Watch the water slowly come down. And what you will realize is the following. Water will never, ever, ever seek a high position. Never. Water will always choose the lowest of positions in life. Always. It'll go into ditches. Go back to the Gospel of Luke. I have not come for the righteous, but those who have sinned. Look at the counselors we have on campus, any campus, at any level. They're not there for those who assume that they know where they're going and what they're doing. Their door is always open to those who are confused and restless. None of us in this class go to a doctor when you feel yourself to be healthy, unless you're privileged enough to just go on a checkup. Okay? The dangerousness of being like water in the presence of novices is the following. I was about 19 or so. I had gone to Hussein's shop. I guess I was relatively in a good mood. And because Hussein and I had been playing tennis and I'd gone to his house and he'd come to my house, that moment in time, I just assumed that we are friends and I can be casual. So I just called him Hussein. And he looks at me and says, don't ever call me Hussein. It's always Mr. Hussein to you. Just because water seeks the lowest position in life, if Malcolm X comes and sits with you, if Socrates comes and sits with you, it does not mean they are your friend. You knock on their door for one reason. There is a ditch inside you. You have come to realize there is something wrong with you, that they can cure you. And because of that, be aware of your body language. Be aware of your thoughts, hidden or visible. Be aware of the way you speak. Okay? Now, the thing you need to know about water is the following. Water doesn't need to be a Jew, or a Christian, or a Muslim, or a Buddhist. Water will take the shape of any container. Remember the saying of Socrates, I am no longer a citizen of Athens, but of the world. Remember the Gospel of Luke, that I'm not just here for the Jews anymore. Anyone who finds me finds a seat at my table. That is called being like water. But you need to have a ditch. Okay? Two things are at play when you find yourself with a Socrates and he has the quality of water inside him. At once, he has the component of pride as well as humility within him. He will sit with you because that is what his function is. He has found you to be worthy. Worthy of what? Once in a while, you and I embody this. Sin. And if you're allergic to the word sin, once in a while, you and I feel our regret, feel our remorse, feel our guilt. That is a ditch. It's a hole. That hole has a good amount of sadness to it. It desires a cure, a remedy of sorts. And once a ditch is visible, Socrates, like water, will simply flow down. And Socrates will not ask you about your marriage or about your kids. That's not the sort of ditch he's looking for. Remember, formlessness, emptiness, becoming a child. This is what these people want to create. Whether you're a Hindu or a Buddhist or Enkidu. Okay? Once you have no longer a form or identity, once on the inside you're empty. And it's an emptiness that contains no fear, no anxiety, no confusion, no dread. Once you're actually okay with having nothing and only having fun with formlessness and emptiness, these are the only two things you will ever find entertaining enough. Okay? Once you're at this stage, You will do absolutely nothing unless something descends from the heavens and allows you to be creative. There is this poem, let me see if I can remember it. Since I no longer play music or sing, I am forgetting all my Persian poems. I think it goes something like this. I forget. But let me tell you what the poem is suggesting. We have an instrument in Persian, it's called daf. It's like a drum. And this drum has these chains around it. So when you hit it, slap it, the chains also begin to make a sound. Okay. And so this poem says, I am like a drum. I will sit. I will sit. If God picks me up and slaps me, I will sing. I will make noise that will inspire and excite your soul. If, on the other hand, God does not slap me, I will remain mute. Consider for a moment our friend Greg. And let's say he truly embodies this thing called old age. Forgive me. And with old age comes the absence of time, the absence of energy, the absence of vigor, the absence of hope, desire. You look back and you have regret and you have remorse. And he sits and he sits. And inside him, because he's reflective, because he wants to tell me, a young man, how to value youth, how to value time, what sort of hopes, dreams, and desires I should have. He waits and waits and waits until he sees inside me a hole, despair, where I'm open enough, where I can go to him and ask, Greg, what does it mean to be 63? You know what I have done for him? He has been longing, yearning to talk about old age and the wisdom of getting old and the regrets that come with old age. He's been longing to find someone whose ears are worthy enough to hear the wisdom that he has inside him. Once I go to him, he comes to life as if I've slapped him. Now he begins to talk, and his speech baptizes me, inspires me, excites me. But should he find me unworthy of 63 years of wisdom that lives inside him, and if he finds me callous, simply an intellectual curiosity, so Greg, tell me, what does it mean to be 63? He will keep his mask on, he will shake his head and give me a smile. That's it. Okay? Now, when Greg is talking to me and finds me initially very open, there is something he begins to notice. Once in a while, I become forgetful. And in forgetfulness, my intentions begin to change. And the moment I become forgetful and my intention changes, I am no longer as curious about the wisdom that lives inside him. I close up. When I close up, I create for him an obstacle